My name is Jess Cervellon, and I'm super excited to bring you my new podcast, The Juice with Jess. This podcast is going to be about everything in your customer's journey. We're talking acquisition, awareness, making that purchase, retaining that customer, bringing them back around, and everything in between. This is going to be all about delivering dope brand experiences and talking to some really amazing people who are in the customer experience space, the marketing space, and everything in between. Welcome back to another episode of The Juice with me, Jess. This week, I'm super stoked because I have a buddy here named Jimmy DeCicco. He is the Chief Brand Officer of Super Coffee, and Super Coffee was founded in 2015. But the reason I said it funny, a buddy, is because Jimmy and I have been sitting here realizing we're super connected with so many other people in the e-com space, and I think that's really tight. So, Jimmy, tell the audience all about Super Coffee.
What up, Jess? This is awesome. I'm excited to be here. We've been chit-chatting and catching up, and I'm excited for this combo. So, yeah, I started Super Coffee in 2015 with my two younger brothers. We were right out of school. My two brothers were in school. I had just graduated. Yeah. And we didn't want to drink a Starbucks Frappuccino that had 45 grams of sugar and 300 calories, right? And that was the only thing that was available. So we started brewing coffee in our dorm room, and we put protein in it. We put healthy fats, MCT oil in it. We put a little extra caffeine in there. And it worked. It tasted good. It was good for us. It had functional ingredients, and we started selling it to our teammates and our classmates and our coaches. And we walked into Whole Foods one day in 2015. This was before Amazon was involved. And we basically said, hey, we're Super Coffee and you don't carry anything like this. And they were like, sure, we'll give you guys a shot. So we got into one Whole Foods, and we didn't know anything about this industry, right? Yeah. Like, we didn't know what it took. We didn't know co-packing, DSD, none of that.
None of it.
And all we knew is we needed to sell a lot of coffee. So this one store manager did not know what he did by saying we could sell at his store, because he was like, sure, you have two facings here in my produce section. And we showed up every day. We demoed every day. Those two facings became 200 facings. Like, we took over the whole cooler. And before long, I mean, we were the best selling bottle of coffee in that store. And we took those sales to the store down the street and the next store and the next store. And that's how we built for the first couple of years.
Man, that's so sick. I think bootstrapped startups are just... Well, one, I'm a startup junkie.
Yeah.
So I love a moment of like, you just got to go figure it the fuck out, you know? But I think that story is really inspiring. And I also think what's really interesting too is that now, so this was 2015, we're talking 9 years later, right? There's so many like different functional like coffees and mushrooms and this and that and the other thing. And I think you guys were like on the precipice of that, right? Like, there was nothing like that out there.
Yeah. Back then, like, Bulletproof Coffee was a recipe, you know, like a blog. Like, Dave Asprey had just come back from like Nepal or something, and he was putting yak butter in his coffee, and like, that was kind of far out. Yeah. But we were really the first to bottle this sort of sugar-free Frappuccino, if you will. You know, like, we want to taste like a Starbucks Frappuccino with a third of the calories, none of the sugar. And there's this like weird spectrum, or it's not weird, but the spectrum in beverage where you have something that's familiar, like a Starbucks Frappuccino on one end. And if you're too familiar, like if we were just another coffee with milk and sugar, people wouldn't adopt us. They would have no reason to leave Starbucks for us. And then on the other end, you have novel and like biohacking, adaptogenic, like, and if you're too novel and too scientific, I don't think the mainstream will adopt you either. So you got to play somewhere in the middle where you kind of taste like Starbucks, but you offer the benefits of the functional stuff without hitting people over the head with the science.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's really interesting, because I mean, like, the whole purpose of this podcast is honestly talking about like customer centricity and like understanding that acquisition and retention, but like that customer journey. And I think for you being a brand officer, I want to get back to the journey of your customer, but I actually want to start here. Can you tell the audience and the people listening in or viewing, what does a chief brand officer do?
It's a good one. You'll probably get a different answer from everybody. But,
I know.
So I was the CEO for 7 years. We brought in a CEO end of 2022, which was great. And I transitioned to chief brand officer. And anybody you talk to who starts a company says like the founders are the brand. The founders are very passionate about the brand and all of that. And that was true to an extent. But like I've defined chief brand officer as chief business officer, right?
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize, or what I certainly didn't realize, is that marketing drives the P&L. We're not just coming up with creative ideas. We're not just coming up with fancy decks and target personas and all of this stuff. It's like, where are we spending money? What is the return on that money? Does the P&L work? How are we measuring success on this spend? Who are we targeting? Who are our loyalists? And having built this thing from the ground up with my brothers for 7 years, I felt very passionate about getting into that chief brand officer role.
Yeah.
And partnered, our new CEO, Tyler Ricks, is a fantastic partner. He was classically trained in brand management at Pepsi. So he's come in and taught me so much about how to manage the P&L and how to measure traditional category management, brand management stuff. But for me, like, I touch every lever of business, from like positioning statement and actual branding on the bottle and website, to where are we spending our money? How are we measuring that money? Where should we stop spending money? And I think from 2021 compared to 2024, it's a totally different business. It has to be.
Yeah. I mean, your customer changes.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking 9 different years, right?
Totally.
Like, every year that customer has to change. I mean, it doesn't have to change, but they do change. Like, the economics change. People's, people move around. There's different trends, there's different fads and everything. And I think it's like really interesting. I think the brand manager or branding, like non-brand marketing, but like the brand type of role is really interesting because it actually varies company to company.
Yeah.
I've seen some brand managers, or like people just, I don't want to say like managers specifically, but people managing the brand, right?
Right.
Doing completely different things. Like, there's one company I can think of that I like help out, like consulting, and their brand managers are handling like affiliate and influencer or SMS marketing. But those don't actually play with the overall of what a brand manager does.
Totally.
Everybody has like a different perception of it.
I think from the startup world, it's totally different, right? Like, because where I come from, brand is your positioning, your colors on the packaging, how do you stand out on a shelf? Like, if your brand was a celebrity, who would it be? Like, that type of stuff. Like, I actually think of the essence of the brand. But traditional brand management from a CPG perspective at Pepsi, Coke, Kellogg's is category management. It's looking at the data. It's, where are we going to spend shopper marketing dollars? How are we telling a story that we're better than our competitors, incremental to the category?
Yeah.
It's a SKU level story too. It's like, hey, our vanilla performs better than Starbucks' caramel. So you're losing, the SKU is not productive for you. And to me, like, that is like data, math, science.
Yeah.
That's not brand when I think of brand, but that's how brand management is defined.
Totally. So you actually hit a really good point too. Even at Feastables, brand manager role is actually like brand new there. Shout out to my girl, Laura. I'm looking straight at the camera when I say this, but so the person that's in this role at Feastables, right? Super heavy in data, like really like came from the strategy team, got a lot of consumer research. And now she's like on the brand manager side, on the marketing piece of it. But I think it's like really interesting, like the data piece of that brand manager role, even though it's like the Pepsi and the Coca-Colas that traditionally have that data heavy stuff. I think it's like so interesting that Feastables or even other like startup brands like think about that brand manager role and like being heavy in analytics is my point.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think a lot of times we think just in marketing, like, okay, it's the wants, the feels, and like the emotionality of the product, right? But you also still got to do that consumer research piece of it. You still got to like, how is that color hitting on your chocolate bar, you know? Like, or the coffee or whatever it is. And I think that data piece is so important. And I like, just in my opinion, the one tactical advice that I can give to like a startup just starting out is like thinking about the like a brand manager position or your branding, not just from like I've built my package and I have this bottle that looks a certain way. Like, how is it actually hitting? And like put a little data behind it, because you're going to go a little bit farther than just off assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right on, right? Like when we first got started, I mean, to me, and I think to most marketers, when they hear brand or branding or even brand management, they think of like liquid death, storytelling, media. How do you cut through? How do you be different? How do you entertain? But then the whole traditional CPG looks at it like, what's our data story? Why are we different? How are we incremental? And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive, right? Yeah. Like the more effective you tell that story, the more effective you are at telling that story, the better your data is. is. And the more you can sort of glean insights from that data, the better stories you can tell for the category managers. Because it all comes down to like, at first, when you don't have data, you have to rely on our brand, right? Like we are different because nobody else is doing 0 sugar protein coffee or whatever that story is. Before we have proof points, you have to tell why we're different. And then it becomes, okay, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. Not only are we different, like we're expanding the category because we bring in customers who don't buy a Starbucks Frappuccino, So you figure out why is your brand valuable to that category manager, at least from a retail perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we said this before we even started recording, like we were going to get into this, but I think that that's like a really interesting thing is that retail and D2C are two different places, right?
Totally.
Like, I think they're both very important, especially as you're growing a brand, like a company. You should always have like a digital presence because we're in a digitally native world, right? But I think what's interesting is that you see a lot of like CPG companies. Feastables is one of them. Like Super Coffee is another one because I'm just using these two examples right now. But I think what's really interesting is that you can start in D2C completely. I'm slinging my CPG brand or even apparel or whatever it is, right? And then at some point, flipping into retail might make more sense for your brand, right? So I'm actually curious for Super Coffee. Before we started recording, you were saying that like you're exclusively on Amazon now. Like, tell me about how that happened. Like, what did the company go through to decide like I want to just be exclusively on Amazon and retailers?
Yeah. So 85% of our business still happens in stores, 50,000 stores across the country. And in 2022, we were sold on our website, drinksupercoffee.com, as well as Amazon. But D2C was super expensive for us to get people to show up at our website. We were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook ads just to get people to show up. Yeah. And in our category, ready to drink beverages, we have to sell for $3 a bottle, $36 a case. A case weighs 10 pounds to ship, so the margins are very thin on e-commerce, but you also need to be available to people who may discover you in a bodega in New York City and want to go subscribe on Amazon. So we made the pivot. We put all of our e-commerce business into Amazon. It was less friction in getting people to show up at our website. We do a lot of targeted ads, keyword search type stuff on Amazon to kind of own this healthy protein coffee category on Amazon. But it is still a smaller business. It's not like we discontinued D2C and captured all that on Amazon. I was surprised to see that. Like we discontinued it in 2022. 2023 was about half of 2022's revenue online. Like we basically lost all of Shopify, barely captured any of it on Amazon. And now this year we're starting to rebuild slowly. But the good news is it's a lot more profitable than it was.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's like you got to go for what's more profitable, right?
And especially in today's world. In 2021, it didn't seem like anybody cared. They were like, pour more money. Here's money. We're going to invest this money so you could spend it on ads and drive that top line. Yeah. And that's what we did. And we were great at it. Like we built a sick brand, but the unit economics only worked if these people who we converted were buying 4, 5, 6 times. And on average, they weren't. So we were losing money on the cost to acquire customers.
Right. Absolutely. With this new model, like what does retention look like for you? Like how are in these additional channels that aren't D2C where you own that customer, right? Like Amazon or your retailers, like how do you look at like getting information about that repeat purchaser, retaining them, getting them to continue coming back? Like, because this is something we battled with at Feastables, but every other like brands that I consult with that are more predominantly in retail, like they usually come to me to understand the retention. And I'm like, okay, well, we got to go buy that data, my friends.
Totally. Yeah. So data's super expensive. Last year we had a SPINS account, which is just Nielsen, it's syndicated data. This year we're on IRI. They rebranded to like Circana or something. And this is basically, it shows you the entire category. So for us, ready to drink coffee by store, by channel. So like we could see Walmart and we could see the mass channel. We could see Kroger and we could see the grocery channel. We could see Wawa and we could see the convenience channel, and every brand. So you see where Starbucks is, how they're performing, what their trend is over 52 weeks, 26 weeks, 13 weeks. Yeah. And that's kind of like the detailed analytics of it. But then they have panel data too, which shows how many heavy users are buying super coffee, how many medium users are buying super coffee, how many light. And then there's different ways to target them. So one thing we've been doing, we partnered with this company called Catalina. And we can see they have credit card data. So we can see that you bought a Starbucks Frappuccino. And next time you're at the grocery store, you're going to get a little coupon that says 75 cents off the first bottle of super coffee you try. And then you buy super coffee with that coupon. So now you're a super coffee customer and you're a light buyer. We want to convert you to a medium buyer. So the next time you're at that grocery store, you get a coupon that says save $2 off of every 4 super coffees you buy. So we went from 75 cents off of one bottle to now trying to take more money off of more bottles and incentivizing you to become that loyalist.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect science.
Yeah. But I think loyalty and rewards is like the only real way you can like get them to come back, because you can't control that customer.
Yeah, there is. It's so hard to have loyalty today, it feels like.
Dude.
Yeah. And people, especially in retail, people just buy what's available, you know, and if your product is out of stock or if you're not on the shelf or if there's a massive Starbucks display on the floor, that's what people are going to buy. You know, and that's the sort of law of the category leader. I think any category where there's a leader, you know, in coffee, it's Starbucks, and sports drinks, it's Gatorade. And, you know, those people shift from Starbucks to super coffee, but then they always go back to Starbucks.
Yeah.
You know, there's not really loyalty.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's so in this category and I think several categories in like CPG in general, like it is really hard to like build the loyalty, but I think it's really hard to break the consumer behavior. Because like when you mentioned the Gatorade thing, right? Like if I'm sick, I'm not going to go and try to go figure out like a new electrolyte drink, right? Like I'm going to go to the shelf, 7-Eleven, Walmart, wherever it is, and just grab the tried and true, even if it's not the best for me, because like I don't feel well at that time. You know, that's when I like drink Gatorade, right? Like it's but when it's like sports or athlete or any of those things, like, and I'm like got the time to think about it, I'm going to go research the better electrolyte companies, you know? So, but my point is just to drive it home about what you were saying about the behaviors, that like, it is really hard to get like loyalty because, and like you be that Starbucks, you be that Gatorade, right? It's like, it's constant fucking science.
Yeah. And it's a chicken or the egg, right? Because like retailers won't take you unless you have data. It's like, a space to sales ratio. You know, you only get as much space as your sales deserve. But if you're not in the stores, if you're a new brand and you haven't got into 7-Eleven yet, they're going to look at rest of market performance and be like, guys, you're not selling anywhere. Like, we need to give this entire shelf to Starbucks. And then once they give you that shot, it might be 2 facings in the bottom shelf, and they're like, hey, you're not performing as well as Starbucks. Like, no shit, we're buried on the bottom shelf. You know? So it's really hard for young brands to cut through without spending a lot of money to get the right shelf space, to drive the proper awareness. You know, and it's a constant battle. It's why the consumer is so expensive to get started.
I know, for sure. It is a constant battle. And I mean, we're probably not giving the most tactical advice now.
We're just venting.
We're like, it is a battle. But I think, I mean, there's definitely tactics. It's like going back to like being, like just being in a digitally native world, right? Like being really fun and innovative when it comes to like spectacle marketing or even like sampling. Like these are all ways you can kind of intercept on this is field marketing, but like on the ground and get in front of that customer. Like Liquid Death, I mean, going back to that example, yes, is very much branding, right? But like they became such a badass company because they were going out there on the streets and really putting it in front of people, right?
Totally.
And so now, you know, years later, I'm actually a Liquid Death fan. Like I'm going to go to 7-Eleven and go pick up the Liquid Death water before Smart Water.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's because that field marketing piece for them is very important.
Your CX is great. That phrase is so last season. We want to hear your CX is incredible because at Customer, we believe in delivering incredible customer experiences. Introducing KIQ Agent Assist, the ultimate CX team AI sidekick built on our CRM to give agents superhero capabilities and efficiency. When building KIQ Agent Assist, we had goals in mind. 1, get rid of long customer wait times and increase the speed of customer resolution. 2, provide the CS team with real-time data for personalized personalized prompt. 3, delegate those mundane tasks to AI. And 4, free up the agents to deliver a human experience. But listen, we didn't stop there. We wanted to deliver more. Check out KIQ Agent Assist's amazing features with suggested responses, automatic two-way translation in 53 languages, and conversation summary. Upgrade your customer experience with KIQ Agent Assist. Try it today and see the difference. Customer, delivering incredible CX every single time.
I'm curious, actually. Now I'm in a hole of field marketing.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, tell me about Super Coffee. Like, I know you briefly talked about it in the beginning of, like, you were going out there and you were sampling at like the stores, but like, what does that look like today? Like, are you still doing sampling? Are you still doing like being in the streets and being like, try my coffee?
Yeah. No, it's so definitely, right? I was just in Columbus this weekend, Columbus, Ohio, for the Arnold Classic, big fitness expo, 100,000 people there into fitness, looking for a competitive advantage. So protein coffee was like a great thing to have there. We've been there for 4 or 5 years now. So yes, field marketing is a part of it. I think one comment, I'll answer the Super Coffee story in a second, but like, so I heard this analogy the other day that a brand manager or whoever's responsible for brand at a company is kind of like a disc jockey who's got all these dials and knobs in front of you, right? And it's not just field marketing 100%, right? It's dialing up field marketing a little bit while you have a Facebook campaign going on, while you're on sale at Whole Foods, while you're running coupons at Catalina. It is this constant 360 integrated marketing mix that you have to pull all these levers at once. And it really needs to be diversified. You can't kind of put all your bets on one channel. And that in-store execution piece is so crucial. Like Liquid Death has the same challenge that we have, where they drive a lot more impressions than we do. But if they're driving impressions to an empty shelf because the distributor's not executing, then those impressions are almost falling on deaf ears. So like, if you're going to ramp up a marketing campaign, say with a Super Bowl commercial or an out-of-home campaign, you have to have enough product in stores. You have to have your distributors incentivized to execute, because otherwise you're wasting it. And same deal, I see a lot of young brands press go on the marketing machine when they're not widely available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel bad for the audience because I do constantly go back to this Feastable stuff, but it was my life for a long time. But honestly going back to like Feastables, right? Like at Feastables, like we had a broken bar situation on shelves, like not because of the product itself, but like because kids would like go and grab it and they would be like super excited about it, right? But then when we were having also problems with where even just stores putting it out on the shelves. So going back to incentivizing your distributors to be incentivized to like put it on the shelf, like be out there, like constantly refreshing it, like facing it, merchandising it, all of those things, right? But one thing in the beginning of launching in retail that we were doing is like we were such a marketing engine to do the marketing pieces and to go to the store, but didn't understand the distribution piece of it yet. Of the incentivization, or it, like we could say we're in Walmart, but that doesn't mean you're on shelves in Walmart.
Right.
You in the back in Walmart.
That's right.
And and it's not even just them. Like I've seen this even with other brands, like young brands, like tight, you're at Target now and you're at Walmart, but that doesn't mean at the 500 locations you're on the shelves yet because you haven't done the incentivization. You haven't done the like collaboration with that distributor.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And like, as I think about how our marketing approach has shifted over the last almost decade now, in the early days, it was, we have to make Super Coffee available. And it was inch wide, mile deep. Like we started on one store on one corner. We went to the next closest store in that neighborhood and then the next closest store, and we saturated a neighborhood and then a city and then a region, basically from DC to Philly to New York to Boston. And we got everywhere there, ensuring that our products were on shelf. We hired a big sales team. We were doing the merchandising with our distributors, and our products were available and sales were great. And if a store took a 20 case display, which is a ton of coffee, we would back it up with demos on the weekends to move through it and ensure that it was selling. And that's what we did for several years. And then once we were able to raise money based on that data, we spent money on Facebook ads. We did some targeted out-of-home campaigns on I-95 corridor to support Wawa, the convenience store we had just gotten into at the time. We've done some celebrity endorsements, not much influencer stuff.
Yeah.
And I think after this whole VC flooding of CPG has cooled off, that really peaked in 2021.
Yeah.
And it was okay. Like growth at all costs was okay because we were losing money, but we were growing triple digits every year, and investors kept writing checks and the valuation kept going up. So I was like, all right, let's just keep growing. And now in 2022, they said, guys, we got to get to profitability. So we unwound all of that, all of this pouring gas on the fire with Facebook ads to drive top line at the expense of bottom line was no longer, and one thing as you think of brand management and growing top line, bottled coffee as a category only has a 22% household penetration, meaning 8 out of 10 households don't buy coffee. Generally, Starbucks, Dunkin', Super Coffee.
Interesting.
So like if I'm throwing a billboard up on the side of the highway, that is not very targeted market. So now in 2022, we're a lot more targeted, and we've got 9 years worth of data to see what other products are in our customers' carts. It's Chobani yogurt, it's Quest bars, it's RX bar, like we talked about. So I can serve ads to RX bar buyers and say, we think you're qualified to buy a Super Coffee because you buy RX bar. So we don't say that, but that's why they're getting the ad. Right.
Yeah. No. Oh God. Oh, I want to like dive into this one because I love this subject of like, this is on the D2C side, but not on the retail side. But there's a program called Disco.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it,
Yep.
but so Disco is really cool in the aspect for D2C, right? Kind of does that same offering of like, okay, I don't know if you're a hydration company, right?
Yeah.
New moms really love hydration, right? So it's like they take those data points and then offer your products in the post checkout, right?
Yep.
And so I love that concept though. I know that tool specifically is for D2C, but I love this concept of like in the retail markets of like finding out what your customers are going to buy, what their behaviors are, and then slanging them your products based off of like them fitting your customer persona.
Totally.
Oh.
Totally. This is a funny one because it hasn't even happened yet. March 11th. We're March 6th right now when we record this.
Yeah.
So we got this data from 7-Eleven that said Super Coffee way over indexes with protein bars, specifically Quest bars.
Wow.
And we love that. So we reached out to the Quest team and we said, hey, we should do a collaboration. Buy a Super Coffee and a Quest bar, save $1 off at 7-Eleven. And Quest is they're owned by a big publicly traded company now. And it's tough to kind of get stuff done.
Yeah.
But I kept chipping away. I was like, at the very least, let's start with a social media giveaway, then do an email giveaway. And I kept getting the stiff arm. And I was like, guys, look, we have a big list here. We can do all of this. And this was 6 months ago. And on March 11th, I just saw on Amazon, Quest Bar is launching a protein coffee with 0 sugar and 10 grams of protein.
Stop.
Yes. And good for them, right? It's capitalism. It's all of this. But it's a great insight that people who buy Quest Bars also buy a lot of Super Coffee.
Yeah.
So if I was Quest Bar, I'd launch a coffee.
Yeah. I mean,
wish them luck.
we gotta meet our macros with our protein,
I guess so, yeah.
Gotta get the bar and the coffee at the same time. Wow. Dang. How bummed were you though when you found that out?
No, it makes sense, right? Good for them. I think it's tough to do, and you got to stay focused on your core. Like for us to launch a bar or a cereal would be bonkers.
Dude, it's also really hard.
It's a different game.
It's so hard.
It's a different game.
That's like doing chocolate and an energy drink,
Yeah. I talked to a guy this morning who's got successful coffee cafes chain, like a small chain in Houston. And he's like, yo, I'm getting into RTD. Like, what do you want to tell me? I'm like, don't do that, dude. Like, it is really so hard. Like, it's so expensive. And like, there's no way to have like a subscale RTD business because you're selling a bottle to distributors for $1.50. It costs you $1 to make it. You're making 50 cents. Like, you literally have to sell 100 million bottles to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And to get to that point, you lose so much money to get there.
Yeah. I know. And for the audience, like if you don't know what RTD is, it's ready to drink. So like your beverage category if you're at your grocery store.
Yeah, sorry, we're getting like technical.
We're real deep up in here in the CPG world, but and CPG, consumer packaged goods.
There it is.
We said that one. Okay, cool. So I feel like I really actually want to come back to like just your customer journey.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I'm like a CX girl. Customer experience is like my fucking jam.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is who I am, right? So I actually am just interested to know, because I've dealt with this a lot, like at Feastables, but when you made that switch, right, to be predominantly retail and Amazon, like on your other channels, like getting like customer service tickets, like were people reaching out to like find out about product info or like being like an affiliate of the brand or any of that stuff? Like, did you see like volumes going down?
When we made the switch from Shopify to Amazon?
And yeah, exactly.
Yes, but for a lot of reasons, right? We stopped spending so much money on ads. Like there was less marketing happening. So ultimately less traffic to the page, less conversion. But like a huge CX channel for us is social media, right? DMs, comments, all of that. We have like family at drinksupercoffee.com. That's our CX email. So people will hit us up like, where can I buy you guys? Stuff like that. And then Amazon tickets, I don't know. You always hear from the loud minority who's like, hey, I ordered 12 bottles and you only sent me 11. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry we messed up, man. Like, here's a free package. Jesus.
Totally. But yeah, it was everywhere at once, all at once. And we've tried, we talked to you about this, but we've tried a bunch of different tools. We were with Zendesk, we were with Gorgeous, we were with Gladly. Like we had multiple.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, like just from a customer service perspective, right? It's like you beef up the customer service department so much for like when you're in like direct to consumer, and then when you open these other channels, like the volume actually kind of just definitely goes down, and then you don't need you might not need like all the people on the team, which it's kind of a hot take. But I think it's really interesting also how your tickets change. Your tickets change in the sense of like, you're not obviously dealing with order support anymore. You're dealing with like, I love your brand. Like, this is so sick, or a complaint, you know? Totally.
Or like, hey, lately there's been this trend on TikTok where people are like, hey, we're going to my friend's bachelorette this weekend and we want super coffee there.
I
know. Been blown up about it.
Dude, it's not just you. It's literally every brand that I am, that I advise or just homies of, like whatever. It's literally every single one of these brands are having this issue right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good problem to have, and kudos to these girls. It's funny. We saw this literally like over 2 days. We had 200 people reach out to us, and we didn't post anything. Like, this is like a TikTok trend. And so I was like, let's make a video and tell them like, hey, whoever sends us the best videos will sponsor your bachelorette. So I created this video. It was like kind of sick, edited, posted, and that shit got like 40 views and 3 likes. I was like, what the hell? What kind of trend is this?
This is trending. Yeah. Oh man, influencer marketing 101. Not everything goes viral.
That's right.
Man, do you guys want to sponsor my bachelorette?
Is it this year?
Yeah.
Let's go. Yes.
Yeah.
Done. That's an easy one.
Yeah. So anybody tuning in, one, I'm getting married this year, but 2, about to have a sick bachelorette party.
Where are you going to do it?
Guerneville in Russian River. Like, it's right outside of San Francisco.
Sick.
I'm from the Bay Area. And honestly, well, my fiance and I kind of switched, which is funny because he's like super introverted and like doesn't know what he wanted to do. So like we have mutual friends that are going on his and mine too. And anyway, we switched, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to New Orleans, or I'll go like here, like some sick thing, right? And he kept being like, oh, well, maybe I want to do that. And we were trying to push him to go to the woods. So we flipped, and I was like, listen, man, I'm going to go to the woods and I'm going to go chill on a river somewhere. You go to New Orleans. So he might need the coffee more than me.
Send it.
More, I'm like, I'm going to be a chiller out kind of gal.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. We'll do both. That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks. Didn't you say you just got engaged too?
Yeah. We're going to do the wedding next year, 2025.
Yeah, I'm a psychopath, and I'm going to do it this year.
Yeah, let's go.
I got engaged in December, so
I'm
a fucking psychopath.
Waste no time.
I know, Okay, I want to ask you just some like random questions.
Yeah.
Actually, these are a little random, but like I kind of want to go into like personal brand building. Because you do like speaking engagements and stuff, and I think it's really important that founders kind of build their own brand outside of their brand. But that's my thought. Like, what's your thought as like being one of a founder group, right? Like, what's your thoughts on building your personal brand outside of the brand itself?
I think that there's like, this is a tricky thing to explain, but basically like there's no real recipe for building your personal brand.
Right.
Like what I've found is go deep on something. become an expert in like a very narrow, single-minded thing. And for me, it's super coffee. It's not CX, it's not brand officer. It's like I know super coffee better than everybody, and I'll fight my brothers on that one. So go super deep on something, and then honestly and authentically talk about it, right? And I think where people go wrong is they see Jess and her podcast, or they see Devin LeVake bear crawling marathons, or they see Mr. Beast doing his thing on YouTube, and they're like, oh, that's the playbook. Let me go try and do that. If you're not Jimmy, you're not going to be Mr. Beast, and if my buddy Matt Choi has become this like huge running influencer in Austin, and all this dude posts is running videos. What's his workout? What's he eating? And it's just running. And he doesn't sway, he's not lifting weights. He's not like swimming. It's just freaking running. So I think stay in your lane, become an expert on something, and then just document it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like going back to that Mr. Beast example though, it's really interesting. Like people, you do content, and we all like content is king and queen, man. Like, it's not just about posting. It's like shorts, it's all these things, like doing really fun stuff. But if you're going to do it 110. Yeah. Like, but maybe that's because like the brand piece of it, right? I see some pretty shoddy content out there, and I'm just like, dang.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good. And I'm not saying like go and do the studio and like do all of these things. I'm just saying like if you're going to put your personal brand attaching to something, do it at 110.
Totally.
Don't half-ass it.
Yeah. And it's like 1,010, like you can't even comprehend it. I just saw a quote from Mr. Beast the other day that was like, nobody has put in more time over the same time period than me. He's like, when I was sitting in math class, I was thinking about YouTube. When I was on a date with my girlfriend, I was thinking about YouTube. Like when I was with my family, I was thinking about YouTube. And it's like that level of obsession. Sure, we all see these guys and their money and their fame and who they're hanging out with, but we don't see like, what did it take him?
Work
500 videos to get up to 1 million views or something crazy. And you just got to pound it and do it and believe in it and obsess over it. And for me, like I've been doing Super Coffee for 9 years. Like I'm no expert at any one thing, but nobody knows more about my business than me, so I can sit here and confidently talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's your thoughts on like the founder story for a brand? Like, I know we were talking about like the personal brand story, but like what's like some founders are kind of like become like that faceless account, they don't put themselves in front of it. Like, do you think that there's greater value in like putting your face out there as like, I'm the founder of this? Or do you think that like the faceless ways are okay too?
I think it depends on the brand, the product, the category, right? But like in the early days, that story is important. Like, hey, there wasn't a product out there that met my needs. I had this problem, so I solved it with this product. Like that's kind of like the classic playbook certainly for natural foods industry of like solving something. You wanted a healthier version of your favorite snack, whatever. But at a certain point, the brand needs to transcend the founders,
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean we need to be dissociated with the brand, but like, I guarantee you 90% of the people who buy Super Coffee don't know who I am, right? And don't know who my brothers are. And then on the flip side, there's a risk with like a Prime, for example, without Logan Paul, it's just a crappy sports drink.
Yeah.
And I think that's a risk when you think of like strategic acquirers like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever. I think they see that as a risk. Like, sure, that brand's on fire. It's doing billions of dollars in revenue, super profitable. But without Logan, or if Logan were to get in trouble, that brand doesn't like the Prime brand is Logan.
Yeah.
And that's risky to be attached so much to one property or one person.
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, obviously these are completely different fucking categories, right? Like celebrity and like a regular brand, right? But I think like that founder story is really good, like to get it out there. Like the story that you were saying, like going out there and sampling and getting on more shelves. Like you guys were out there hustling, right? Like that's a part of your story. But then at some point, the brand has to supersede you. Yeah. And then going back to the celebrity example, because this is like where I've lived in that influencer space, like I think that like I think it's all really important that even on the influence and the creator brand side, that like that product has to supersede that creator and influencer. Because if you have that attachment of like, this person like, gets a DUI or does something really crazy and says something racist online, like the brand's going down the tube,
Totally.
So I think like the founder story is important for those initial stages from like an acquisition point of view, but we talk about acquisition and retention, like from the retention point of view and like the lifetime value of like in the longevity, you got to like detach it at some point.
Yeah. So the one brand that I think does it really well at scale. Have you tried Poppy, the prebiotic soda?
Yeah.
Do you know who Allison is?
No.
See, okay. So that's a brand that's great product, great packaging, great branding. And the founder, Poppy and Super Coffee kind of came up at the same time, right? We were both on Shark Tank around the same time. We we're both in BevNet at the same time. And I know them really well. So like, I'm kind of close to them. But if you go to their Instagram, it's Allison, the founder, it's husband-wife duo, Allison telling stories about Shark Tank and why she created the product. And this is a $200 million revenue company. And she's still out there preaching it. But this is a product that you know and drink and you don't know her. So it's like a good balance.
Yeah. That's a really good example of it. All right, my dude, we are at the end of the road.
This is freaking great.
I know. I feel like we could talk for hours. And like, I honestly, even if the cameras go off, like we're going to do this. But where can people find you, Jimmy?
Yes, LinkedIn is I'm occasionally posting on there. On Instagram, my brothers and I are still doing a lot of videos on Drink Super Coffee's page, telling stories. Super Coffee's available in grocery stores nationwide, based in Austin, Texas. So if any of y'all are ever coming down here, hit us up.
Austin, Texas. I'm always here now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Juice, and I'll see you guys next Thursday. Toodles. Hey, wow, you made it to the end of the episode. That means that you like me and I like you, which also means you should subscribe to this show.